evening, everyone. Thank you for coming for this event. This event was actually Jen's idea since we live in South India, in Chennai, and both of us have friends and family in Delhi, and we wanted to share our experience and whatever we've understood about the South with people who mattered to us. That's why we're here today. And my journey has been of a few decades. I've been living in Tamil Nadu since 1995, September, and I had major language issues because when I had gone to Tamil Nadu, Jayant was a sub-collector in a subdivision called Periyakulam. It was a subdivision of Madurai in those days. And we reached there, I had an 8-month-old son. And the moment we reached, he said, there are some bad events going on, I can't stay in the house, you have to manage. So I was there in the Kachahari area where the neighborhood was offices and a jail. So, but I tried to build up my courage, and I said, well, this is it, this is my life, I have to live here and I have to manage, and there's no question of whether there's a neighbor or someone who could understand my language. So it was challenging. I used to read a lot of books in my free time, and what attracted me the most of Tamil Nadu was the temples, the big corridors, the gateway is called Gopuram, and my childhood we used to learn about the great wonders of the world. And as children, all children are in awe of what is taught in school as what is considered as the wonders of the world. But it was in 1999, the first page of the book has a picture of me with my 6-month-old daughter in my arms and my 4-year-old son standing there. It is the first floor of the Brihadeshwara temple. It was then that I realized that, is this not a wonder of the world? How can a Leaning Tower of Pisa be considered a wonder of the world and such a huge architectural feat be not even recognized beyond a certain geographical understanding of what India is? So, well, it took me many decades to start writing because I started to work, and then my kids grew up, and then I developed health issues, and I knew I had to find a way to do something creative. That's when I started writing. I remember writing my first short stories in 2015. It was not really encouraged. The person who read it said, this is not good enough, nobody's going to read it. So then I started writing blogs of temples. Brihadeshwara temple was the first temple I wrote about. It was just a 3-page article. And then I was actually called by our IS Officers' Wives Association to talk about the temples. Then I realized that maybe, people want to know. People want to know, even though one is living in Tamil Nadu, one may be a native of Tamil Nadu, but still they may not be aware of the greatness, the heritage that Tamil Nadu provides. And just by saying that we have the oldest language, or we have the best this or best that, that's not enough. You need to give an understanding as to why something is the best. So that's how I started writing. And my articles were published in a site on Indology called Pragyata. That's when I had a bigger audience because it was online. And my articles were appreciated by writers whose books I had read. Writers like Conrad Elst, Subhash Kak. And then I realized that, okay, I can be going ahead in this. I remember in school, I didn't score well in English, neither in my 10th board, neither in my 12th board. All the other papers I have done well, but not in English. So that was again, I used to think that maybe I don't write well enough, that's why I never scored. But then I was told that your writing reaches the reader. People understand your simple, lucid way of writing, so you should continue this. And that's when I started writing my first book, which covers, well, I am from Bihar and my roots are in Nalanda. So my first chapter of the book was Rajgir, followed by Nalanda. Then we all know that culture travels, and then I wrote about Kalinga architecture in Odisha, And then I covered the Pallava architecture of Tamil Nadu. Now Pallavas ruled in Tamil Nadu from the 3rd century till they were finally wiped out by the Cholas. So my first book has around 5 chapters on the Pallavas. They had created the base for temple architecture in a grand way. Temples are small, what you see in Mahabalipuram, and there are temples in Kanchipuram, which are extraordinary for the time. And the compositions of the sculptures like Kirat Arjuna or Ravan Anugrah temples and all that, you understand that they had so much understanding of Indic heritage. I don't know much. It was only when I started reading that I realized that if our ancestors knew so much, why don't we know even 1% or 2% of what they knew about our own dharma or Indic heritage or whatever you call it, whatever name you give it. I'm not giving it the name of religion. It was just there for us to study. Whatever happened after the 11th, 12th century in our country, that has a major reason for us to be not so aware, but now it's the time. Now everything is available. One should understand, one should be proud of what heritage we have. No outsider can tell us, oh, you brown Indians or anything like that. I say this because in my childhood I did face racism, which was very innocent kind of racism, but somehow it stayed in my mind. So I knew that no. It's just that just being a foreigner doesn't make you wiser. Just because you're from the beyond the border doesn't make you wiser in any way possible. You have to prove it if you're wiser. If you can't, you're not. So then, after the Pallavas, when I was reading, I realized that copper plate inscriptions were used to write down something called land grants to temples, or something which was to be permanent. Copper plate inscriptions is something which cannot be just rubbed off or torn away, or so it was something which is expected to be permanent. Now, Cholas, they wiped out the Pallavas somewhere around the end of the 9th century, and they finished the Pandyas. Finishing doesn't mean they were totally wiped out. No, Pandyas existed. It was in the mid-13th century that the Pandyas finally defeated the Cholas again. So the basic history of Tamil Nadu in the medieval era was that the Pandyas, Cholas and Cheras continued to have power in their own areas, and you could call them traders or guilds or chieftains. You can give them any name depending upon the area they ruled or they had power over. The Cholas believed in local self-governance. They could, there is a king. King's position was hereditary till you could hold the power, but at the grassroots level, at the village level, there was something called similar to Panchayati Raj, which we are told about now, or we governments or centers try to talk about. We have Panchayati Raj. It was there even in 1,000 years ago, or even before that. And when we talk about temples, now temples were not just a place of worship or for people to congregate for rituals. No, there was a lot of information embedded in the temples. Besides showing their engineering skills, architectural skills, there were writings on the temples. Those writings, wherever they have survived, are one of the primary sources for our history. Tamil Nadu has been, I can say, lucky enough in the sense that when the foreign invasion started, Malik Kafur did reach Madurai and did vandalize the temple. But there must have been so many temples that even now we have a lot of information on the temple walls for us to understand the history better. Northern parts of India were not at all lucky in that matter. For example, Bihar, there are hardly any temples, or basically, I mean, even the Vishnu temple in Gaya was rebuilt in the 18th century. So there aren't any temples as such. which can be said to be 500 years old. Ruins, yes, but not standing extant temples. In the South India, and especially in Tamil Nadu, we have extant temples. Brihadeshwara is the biggest of them all. And the Brihadeshwara temple, the Shiva temple at Gangai Konda Cholapuram, and the Darasuram temple, UNESCO has given them UNESCO Heights site heritage designation as a unit. 3 temples, which are hundreds of kilometers away from each other, have been made one heritage site. There's no logic in this. It just shows that they still think that what they create is the greatest. Yes, you are great, but you need to give these temples separate status, separate identities. They were built by separate rulers. If today I say Taj Mahal was built by Jahangir, I would be told that you don't know anything of history. And nobody will understand that if someone someone says that, well, Brihadeshwara temple was built by Rajendra Chola. That's an equally big mistake, because Raja Raja Chola and Rajendra Chola were different people. They may be father and son, just like Jahangir and his son or his father. You cannot say that, oh, these are the same. They're not the same. Very different. They have their own identity. They were built maybe 50 years apart. 50 years is enough for, identification. So, as I researched, I used to go to the museum, take permissions. Please give me some information on maybe the copper plates or the bronze sculptures. There are numerous bronze sculptures in the Chennai Museum, but it's just that they're inside glass frames, and taking pictures is a big problem because the light reflects. I used to, I go again and again, try and figure out whether someone would switch off one light so that I could get a better view of the image. Now those are extraordinary images. Bronze images, is not that the Cholas invented it, no. They just mastered the art. It was, the earliest bronze images is the Harappan dancing girl. So it was something that was there. It's just that in many areas the art died away for whatever reasons. This book, I've tried to cover significant Chola temples in various parts of Tamil Nadu. The Cholas, they built new temples and they ensured the renovation and reconstruction of old temples. And it was not just the kings who would do it. Kings' wives, Cholas had multiple wives, the rulers had around, it depended how many wives they wanted. It was a cultural, but all the wives were given a lot of importance, and they had the freedom to either get temples built or get copper or bronze images made. They could even decide upon an area where they wanted a temple to be built. So this freedom I saw even given to Pallava queens. So maybe 200, 300 years before the mighty Cholas. So Raja Raja's sister, Kundavai, I'm sure some of you may have watched Ponniyin Selvam Part 1. I have not watched the movie. The reason is that although the movie is based on historical characters, movie is fictional, and I didn't want to get confused as to what if I've written something wrong in the book. That's a massive hit. So Raja Raja Chola's sister, elder sister Kundavai, she brought him up. Reason was Raja Raja's mother had committed sati. I have not written much here in the book about all that. Reason being that I don't want to be pulled into any controversy. I'm not a historian, but yes, I've read the inscriptions and the translations, which clearly mention all those things. So when we talk about culture, north and south, and this divide, when you read my book, especially this book, you'll understand that where is the divide? There is no divide. It's so similar, the way the traditions, it's similar, just that Tamil Nadu was a climatically hot place, so I guess living was easier. So I think people and the agriculture was good. The Kaveri Delta was taken care of by the Pallavas, Cholas, Pandyas, whoever ruled in that area. Till date, the dam constructions, the water resource management techniques, whatever the Cholas had done, is still followed. So it's not that we're so great as, we should feel that we're so great that we are the best and this is the best time. There may have been better times. They're not aware of that. They're not aware of that. And I've covered the temples of Chennai area, and it's called Cholamandalam, which is slightly souther. Then there are temples of deep South Tamil Nadu. That area was actually a Pandya area. But the Cholas did manage to get a hold over that area and they built beautiful temples. The last chapter will deal with that. Then there are temples in Tanjore and Trichy. That was the heartland of Cholas. That is also the Kaveri Delta area where agriculture is very good. And agriculture is good not because naturally it's good, no, because of the water management system. Then slightly north Tamil Nadu, there's a area called Villupuram. Villupuram had some ancient temples, but older temples and predating Brihadeshwara. So of the 9th century, 10th century, they are in quite a dilapidated condition today. But the walls have such good inscriptions. Entire walls have inscriptions. So you have a lot of history on the walls. And it was when I studied about the Pallavas and the inscriptions and the language they used. The earlier languages of the 4th, 5th century was Prakrit. Now, as such, people think that Prakrit was a very North Indian language. But one must remember that there were no boundaries earlier on. There were no state divisions. It was a ruler, this area or that area, whatever. So Prakrit was used. The Pallavas used Sanskrit as the language. And their script was not equipped to write Sanskrit. So they invented a script called the Grantha script. So Pallav Granth was what was used. The Cholas also continued the usage of Pallav Granth when they wrote Sanskrit. So it was not that Tamil Nadu was absolutely cut off from other parts of India. It was not at all like that. And there are temples called Kailash Nathar and things. Kailash Nathar is Kailash temple. And Cholas, they had this affinity for Shiv sitting on Mount Kailasha, and this understanding that we want to bring that Kailasha all the way down to Tamil Nadu. So again, that feeling of we don't have the Ganga in the south. So Rajendra Chola had gone and got water from the Ganges. He made the rulers that his army had defeated to carry the water, and it was brought all the way down to Gangaikonda Cholapuram, where the water was mixed into the well, and they felt that now they had brought Ganga to the south. So even then they had the understanding that, we are all one or not one, but at least our culture is the same. Today's politics is, it's a bit confusing as to why this is happening, but if you read these books, I'm sure you will have a much bigger and broader understanding of what India was 1,000 years ago. Now the Cholas were not just concentrated or creating an empire within Tamil Nadu or surrounding Kerala or Andhra Pradesh, no. The Pallavas themselves, it was from the 5th, 6th century that trade had started by the Pallavas and towards the Southeast Asian. islands or territories, or the Sri Vijaya islands, today what we call Indonesia and Southeast Asia. Cholas continued with that. Trade was doing well. That's when the Sri Vijaya rulers felt threatened that their trade routes and their trade areas are being captured by the Cholas. So that's when Rajendra Chola invaded these areas. So what is to be remembered is that the areas were invaded, but Rajendra Chola did not make himself the king of the area. He was practical in the sense that he ensured that whoever was the ruler will continue to rule as long as they did not disturb Indian trade or the South Indian trade with those areas, and they had to give some kind of a tax. So this continued for a long time till Pandyas came to power again in the mid-13th century. And there's about these Cholas, Cheras, Pandyas, Pallavas, whoever ruled, when it came to building of structural monuments in the form of temples or palaces or whatever it was, rulers, successive rulers did not destroy what was already created. It was not that if one ruler was a Shaivite and he created, say, the Brihadishwara temple, and another ruler comes, he's a Vaishnavite, and he goes and destroys the temple, or he changes the deity from the sanctum. Because this has happened in Southeast Asia. If there is a, say, Angkor Wat temple, the biggest Hindu temple in the world, and Angkor Wat was a Vishnu temple, built in the 12th century. And then the next ruler was a Buddhist, so the Hindu deities were kept in the corridors, and the sanctum had Buddha. So these things did not happen in South India. The history that I've researched upon, I have not found a single incident where the deity has been changed or a temple has been damaged. That has not happened. What I've seen is that if a Pallava ruler built a temple and it was damaged and need restoration, a Chola or a Pandya ruler has definitely tried to do their best to renovate the temple, and they would add as added inscriptions that this is what we have done. When we talk about inscriptions, we must understand that writing on the wall means they had a deep sense of history. It's not that they couldn't write on something which was perishable, but those were meant to last. So that was something, again, I mean, today we should have the humility to give respect to our predecessors who lived in this vast land, that they were equipped with whatever they had to ensure that they would be remembered in posterity. I don't think we are doing, we can match their caliber as far as sculpting or inscription writing is concerned. So I think I've talked enough. I hope I've given some information of Tamil Nadu in general and about the book. So, Jen, over to you.
Thank you.